Hey everybody, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I'm going to talk to writer-entrepreneur Blake Reichenbach. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Not bad, man. Thanks for joining me. And we're going to talk about unlocking business growth through creative writing. I'm a creative writer, so this is going to be a cool episode for me. Between writing books, screenplays, blog posts, you name it, I'm always been writing. Where has your start in the writing world, like where did that start for you really? Like what was the moment you realized you like to write? Because not everybody does, right?
Yeah, so I guess the moment I realized I like to write really goes back a long way. I was that kid that at recess, I would be sitting on the side of the playground with a pen and paper writing stories. My Christmas list to my grandparents was, I want a notebook, I want pens, I want a laminator. Really, it was the laminator. That was the big ticket item I always wanted. So it goes back a long way, but bringing it into the world of entrepreneurship and the business world, I originally went to undergrad for an English degree, expecting that I would stay in academia. So my plan was to get that bachelor's degree in English, go on and do my PhD in 20th century literature, and then teach literature.
Okay.
But I decided to take a gap year because, flipping tacos as an undergrad, I didn't have a ton of money in savings.
Right.
And I knew that in grad school, I wouldn't have a huge stipend. So I wanted to build up some money. I got a job at HubSpot as a customer support rep. And by the way, I'm still at HubSpot as a product manager now at our content AI platform. But it was in HubSpot where I realized that, the ability to read complex text and translate that for diverse audiences is so critical to your success as a business leader. Yeah. And that is the core set of skills that I acquired as a lifelong reader and writer and English major. So whether it's technical documentation or business strategy docs, being able to take that, dissect it, and say, this is what an engineer needs, this is what a sales rep needs,
of course,
this is what a support person needs.
You're a translator. You're a translator.
Exactly.
Because I do the same exact thing. I'm translating for technology to business to marketing to even finance. I mean, you have to be able to explain to people why it is you need what it is you're building, how they're going to use it, right? Because it's a user experience involved. That's what project managers do. It's what we do, right? But at the same time, as a creative writer, there's a way to balance telling a story with also telling people the instructional part of it. How do you think balancing those two things really kind of fits in, I guess, an entrepreneur who's trying to start their business?
So I think they're the most important kind of first directive is know who your audience is, because who you're telling that story to is really going to impact what part you surface first. Mm-hmm. So that story of why you're doing what you're doing is going to be way more important if you're in that phase of, maybe crowdsourcing your funding, for example. People who are in that family, friends, acquaintance bucket to contribute to crowdsourcing, they tend to really care about that. Why are you doing? What is the impact? If you're maybe going for an angel investor or the venture capital route or traditional funding through a bank, they're going to want a different story.
Right.
They're going to want to see some of that why, but they're also going to want to get into that data. They're going to
want to see
the
numbers.
Exactly. What are the financial projections? And so, I give that kind of top level example, but it kind of continues no matter how deep you go.
It's all about the audience, really.
On the audience.
Yeah. So you have to really fine tune that part first before you start telling people what you're doing. And let's switch gears for a second, because we both have written books, and there's a lot of people that always come to me saying, I really want to write a book. I have an idea for a book. Let's help them write the book, right? What are the steps that they need to take in order to write a book? Give me top 3 things that they need to do, because I want you to explain it to them so I can stop doing it.
Yes. So first and foremost, and this is going to sound so reductive, but I promise it's important. First and foremost, have something to say and have a unique point of view.
Oh, that's terrible.
Wanting to write a book is not a good enough reason to write a book, frankly.
Right.
Like there needs to be value there.
Yeah.
And the value that you're contributing needs to be something that is unique and not something that if I go to Google, type in a couple of keywords, I can find the exact same information in, 2 to 3 minutes. So number one, have something to say and have it be unique. Number two, I would say have a framework in mind for how you're going to convey that. So start to think about the book structure. Are you going to break it up into sections? How are those sections going to be laid out? Is it going to build over the course of the book, or are these sections going to be independent?
Mhm.
Could someone pick it up and go to chapter 19 and get value out of it if they haven't read chapter 1, and so on?
Right.
So think about the logistics is number two. And then number three, have a plan of what I call like ARC, which is accountability, ritual, and curiosity.
Hmm.
So writing is hard, and writing something that is easy to read is even harder.
Yeah.
So accountability is intended to keep you on track, because if you're only beholden to yourself, you are going to fall off the wagon. Ritual is about remaining consistent and coming back to it over time. And then curiosity, which is sort of my whole brand, like with my business, Howdy Curiosity. But curiosity is about being willing to ask yourself tough questions and to play with your initial preconceptions and your initial ideas, being willing to turn them on their head and go deeper in ways that you might not have initially anticipated. And I think if you have that accountability, make a ritual out of your writing, and follow your curiosity down those really interesting rabbit holes, along with having that unique point of view, and I think you can come up with something that is book worthy.
Well, I mean, curiosity is like the precursor to learning. I mean, if you're curious about something, that means that you want to learn about it, you want to know more about it, and you kind of dive. I go down rabbit holes every single day. It's insane the amount. I'm never going to stop learning, right? And so I always feel like I've made a couple documentaries, I've written some books. 90% of the work is like figuring out the facts. Right. It's like learning about the topic to make sure that what you're telling people is accurate and that you have the right information to help you write the story. So I always say, to go off of what you said, you have to know how to learn. You have to know how to get information, and you have to be okay with that part of it. Because if you're not ready for that, it's a year's worth of like really digging deep. Right. So there's some challenges in being creative for a book, being creative for your business, being creative in general. What are those challenges that you might have faced in pursuing the creative aspects of your work? And how did you navigate through them and overcome them?
Yeah, so I think for me, for a really long time, and perhaps it goes back to my roots as a writer and my initial education being very much within the context of the arts rather than writing as this broader multidisciplinary
I think we all start like
art.
that, right? We all start in that way, I think.
Exactly. But I had this very idealized version of writing and really creativity as a whole, where I saw it as like, this is something that you do with a spark of inspiration, and you do it with passion, and very much the mental image of the tortured poet.
What you see what you see in the movies and TV shows, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I would often, especially when I started freelancing for the first time, immediately after I graduated from undergrad, which, by the way, like entrepreneurship failures, my first foray into freelancing, entrepreneurship failure.
Oh man.
But during that period, I would sit down to write sometimes, and it would be for a client who I really liked, a project I really liked, and I wouldn't have that spark of motivation that I thought was part of the writing process.
Been there.
And I would just be beating my head against the keyboard saying, what's wrong with me? I'm a writer. This is what I do. And I didn't yet have that insight or really maturity as a writer to understand that writing is not about the inspiration or the passion. It's about showing up and doing the work.
Right. Putting in the hard
So I
work.
think exactly. So I think that was probably like the biggest lesson I had to learn.
And like over time, like I mean, I've dealt with the same exact thing. Over time, like I found myself like surrounding myself with other creative people to either bounce ideas off of, or here, read my story. What do you think? And getting feedback, because feedback is it's a start. It's an entrepreneur's number one tool in the arsenal, right? It's getting feedback to iterate upon and become a better entrepreneur, build a better product, build a better story. So, what do you think about surrounding yourself or joining a creative community, and whether or not that can help you become a better writer or a better entrepreneur or both?
I think that especially if you're a solopreneur and not coming from a background or an existing network where you have access to that type of connection, it's non-negotiable to seek it out. Within my own business, that's sort of our like second half of the year priority is building that exact community for writers and entrepreneurs. Because in my own entrepreneurial pursuits, I realized really early on that because I'm someone who works a full-time job in software, but is also an entrepreneur, it's really hard to find those networks for people who are in positions like me. A lot of the networks that already exist tend to revolve around people who are in entrepreneurial situations where like they're all in, like that is what they do. And that's not my situation. Similar with my writing situation. I am not just a writer. It's not the only hat that I wear.
Right.
And so, within my business, Howdy Curiosity, that's what we're really focused on building because I've been able to reap so much value out of collaborating with other writers and other entrepreneurs. And
Is that what
yeah,
made you?
like
Is that what inspired you to start Howdy Curiosity? Like, what was like the genesis behind that? Like, what was the day where you realized, like, I want to start Howdy Curiosity? Like, what sparked it? What exactly does it do? And do you plan on growing it?
Yeah, so I think anyone who has an English degree has a daydream at some point about owning their own bookstore. And so for me, that was always kind of lingering in the back of my mind as something that I wanted to do was own a bookstore, but I never wanted to just sell books. For me, I see books as just like the ice on top of the lake. Uh, I started Howdy Curiosity exactly for that reason, because I wanted to be able to connect with other part-time entrepreneurs and part-time creatives and to be able to facilitate that type of community building that allows people to balance their full-time careers or family commitments with those pursuits that really allow them to go deeper and drive impact in ways that they might have felt restricted from. But also on top of that, coming out of the tech world, I think that there's so much that solopreneurs and entrepreneurs can benefit from by adopting a lot of like the corporate tech structure
Right.
within a community setting. So like if you could have a weekly or daily stand up with other entrepreneurs to say like this is what I am focused on. This is what is most impactful for my project right now.
These are my
Like
blockers.
that
These are
helps
my
create that
challenges.
focus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
No, I
creates
get it.
that focus. It invites opportunities for collaboration that otherwise you would just be, trying to power through on your own.
Right. And struggling most likely, and, getting defeated and wondering what you're doing wrong. Whereas the community can say, well, I've been through that same exact scenario, and here's what I did to navigate through it. And now you implement that strategy. It works. You're like, there you go. That's what. So is that pretty much what what your community is all about that you built? And if so, what can people do to be a part of it?
Yeah, so that is exactly the crux of the community. On top of that, I also bring in authors and subject matter experts from time to time for Q&As, AMAs, and interviews that folks should join.
Nice.
And we have regular book clubs as well to just kind of get together over a book like, How to Grow Your Small Business or Deep Work or Slow Productivity, and just kind of unpack that together as a group. But for folks who are interested, definitely heading over to my website, howdycuriosity.com, is the best way to learn more about the community. And you can also, from my website, that's where you can also apply Right now with the community, it is application based. I'm intentionally keeping the cohort small.
I like that.
So we can make sure that, when people are coming in and joining, that it is a good fit and it's cohesive. And I am like I'm pretty, what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm pretty picky when it comes to quality within my community. So,
Well, it's an
place.
exclusive community, right? You want people to have
Yeah.
intention to join. I mean, I could send an application and it's like, it sounds cool, but am I going to really follow through? You want people who are really all in on this in order to be a part of it. And that makes a lot of sense. I think it sounds fantastic. I think you guys should check it out. HowdyCuriosity.com. Blake, this was awesome. Hope you guys learned something about writing. Get out of that headspace and learn more about the world and start writing, guys. We'll see you guys in the next episode.